Another area of island life, my friends, that was dramatically touched by Typhoon Mawar was the Cushing Zoo. It is a generations old facility that brings back memories and makes new ones of fun, of discovery, of learning, of connecting with animals. And of course, Jimmy and Barbara Cushing are the proprietors. They do this out of love. It is a passion project of theirs, and they are in this for life. Julia Wagner is with ZDR3, beg your pardon, Julia, and you are a zoological organization which took a great interest in helping out Jimmy and Barb there during their time of greatest. Thank you for joining me.
We are very lucky that we had the opportunity to help provide support to the Guam Zoo. Jimmy and Barbara were exceptional to work with. Zoological Disaster Response, Rescue, and Recovery, ZDR3, is a mutual aid network of zoos, aquariums, and other facilities that house these unique exotic species. And in the case of Jimmy and Barbara's animals, they have a lot of species that are native to your environment there, who they have because they are, for instance, non-releasable wildlife. We got a phone call that there was the need for potential support from other zoological professionals. And so we were more than happy to go halfway around the world to see what we could do to help Jimmy and Barbara.
Also alarming is the fact that their facility down there, right on Tumon Bay, it's this beautiful facility. They've got a lot of non-indigenous species also. They've got the emu. They've got sharks that aren't necessarily from this part of the world. They've got the alligator. They've got the donkey. And I've been there dozens of times in my life and everything. So what were your first impressions, when you actually arrived and had boots on the ground, as it were, about what you saw and the conditions?
So I've been very amazed by how quickly they were able to get the animal habitats to a place that were more visually appealing. I will say that they did a remarkable job keeping the animals safe and housed during the storm. And a lot of the damage photos that we're seeing, those tend to be from outside of the zoo, where the debris that is currently in places between the perimeter and habitats. So they've done a lot of work to get those interior habitats and pathways cleared, which is what is allowing the animals to be safe in their environment. It's allowing Jimmy and Barbara to maintain that ongoing care that's required for animals. I know that this typhoon was incredibly impactful for the entire island. One of the challenges when you have a zoo collection is the fact that you are not just maintaining yourself after a storm like this. You have all of these animals who you're also caring for. So they're doing that each day, but they're also already in the process of recovery and getting that environment back to where, folks in the community are used to seeing it.
Which is such a Jimmy and Barb Cushing thing to do. They would be like, okay, well, let's get the pens in working order. Let's get, the fences that were twisted and knocked over. Let's get them back up so that people can enjoy this and, really bring positivity and, and just a wonderful half a day spirit to everybody that comes by.
It really has been remarkable to see. So ZDR3, we consist of over 140 facilities, but our operations up until now have been within the contiguous United States. So our strategies had to be different in this instance. So we are not able to bring the Guam Zoo types of personnel resources and responder resources we normally would. And that's why we instead look to provide them communication support, getting the word out about what's going on, as well as setting up donor portals. Because right now, really what they need are those resources to get through this process of recovery. When you have an incident like this, you have the immediate impact. There's a lot of attention for the, immediate aftermath, but that recovery process, that's a long-term process. And so folks who are willing to help with that, that will help them get there quicker.
Well, Julie, can you talk about and I do want to talk about donations in just a second, but tell me about the state of the inhabitants of the zoo, of the animals themselves, because like you said, there's so many different species, those that live underwater, those that can go, those that live on ground, those that can go either way. Animals have a heightened sensitivity to, to natural disasters and everything like that. How are the animals like right now, and do they have like any lingering effects? And were there any members of the zoo that were particularly affected?
So Barbara really gave an incredible description of what happened, and this is not atypical of what I've heard at other facilities before a high impact event. I mean, think about how the barometric pressure changed. There were just a lot of atmospheric conditions that shifted, that animals at times do, people report, shift their behavior accordingly. And in this instance, Barbara and Jimmy, they sheltered many of these animals in the space with them in in different housing situations to address those animals' individual needs. And they reported the animals were exceptionally calm. Not to anthropomorphize them, but almost as if they knew something was coming.
Sure, and they do, and they, we islanders know that. We know that if you have a, like, say, like a dog or a cat, and the storm's going to be particularly bad, the dog, like my dog, if I can kind of add something to this conversation, is my dog, we couldn't find him for about like a day before the storm hit way back, and then we found him actually huddled up in the bathroom underneath the shower, and he was super nervous, and we're like, okay, this one's not going to be good.
Exactly. And they have intuition, and Barbara's doing things like playing radio for the birds who love that, things to actively work to keep them calm. And one of the things that really struck me from my outset of my time at the Guam Zoo was the animals were calm. I expected to see agitated animals. I mean, think how much in the environment has shifted. But instead, the actual inhabitants, it was as if nothing had happened. And I think part of that is because of the environment Jimmy and Barbara have established, but then because they don't have huge work crews coming in, because they're being very strategic about how they approach this rebuild, they're doing it in a way that's not causing that additional stress point for their animals, which is really important because they have so many geriatrics, they have a lot of animals with special needs, so they really have to think carefully about maintaining a steady state environment even as they are undergoing this process.
That's a good point. I didn't consider that, because yeah, some of the animals that have been there at the Cushing Zoo, they've been there for a very long time.
Longer than I've been alive, some of their animals. And
Yeah.
So it really is a testament to their level of care that they're, many people, and understandably, would be wanting to race toward, that recovery finish line. And, part of that is, some resource limitations. But if Jimmy, he's going to be out there doing whatever he can with whatever he can. And so some of what they're doing is making sure that they're not overwhelming their own inhabitants. So we have discussed the fact that they are looking forward to reopening. It's not currently a known timeline. So, please understand, for folks in the community who want to come and visit, it's not a known date. It's not in the coming weeks. It's a multi-month, most likely. But at the same time, do remember them in your thoughts and consider them in your rebuild effort as part of your community. This is a really essential asset to have.
Absolutely. Now, what about Julie, for those of us who love the facility and think the world of Jimmy and Barb and their dedication and just their genuine love for animals? What if we don't want to pass by the facility, to for recreational purposes? What if we actually want to go there and have sweat equity? And what if we would like to help clean up and do what we can in person to help out? Is that even possible?
No, and I appreciate the thought in that, and that's, sometimes what feels best is getting in there with your hands. Because they are not currently set up for visitors, they want to make sure that they don't have any sort of stress on the animals, and also just ensuring that all the barriers are up, all the things needed to have visitors there. That's a whole nother step of the process. Okay. So we appreciate folks understanding that, volunteerism is not going to be the right route of support at this juncture, but maintaining an eye on when the facility reopens and what opportunities may be available from there. They just are so appreciative that folks are understanding that, I think everyone out there is undergoing a really challenging process, and our hearts from the contiguous U.S. have been with them, and we've already been very pleased to see some of our colleagues contributing to the effort to get them back where they were, and even better is the goal.
Okay, so locals, my friends listening to this and everything, you got to leave the rake at the house. I know you want to go down there and help Jimmy and Barb, but for the safety of the animals, as Julia just said, what we can probably do and what would make a much more swifter and significant impact is, Julia, could we cut somebody a check, or can we donate, in-kind items like feed, or like tools that Jimmy and Barb can do their work?
Yes. So thank you for asking. If you go to right now, the ZDR3 Facebook page and our website, we have the press releases, and I believe you'll be making this information available on your station's website as well. Absolutely. Which is the donor portal that has been set up. And so all funds go directly to the Guam Zoo. ZDR3 does not receive any portion of that. We just help to make sure they had that pipeline. And then also there's an Amazon wish list. So if you want to really pick out the specific items, I had the pleasure of sitting with Jimmy and Barb and really selecting what it is they were asking for, and everything on that list they really thought hard about. And so it's one of those, if you want to give them something, with a note attached, something tangible, that's the best way.
Could we possibly sponsor like a particular animal exhibit? Because my high school, our mascot is the shark, and I would totally love to like sponsor the shark exhibit.
I know that they have in recent months kind of shifted which animals they had, because things at a certain age are no longer there. So what we can do is I would love to connect on what exhibits they have and where they have that specific need, because I guarantee you they would love to have that opportunity to work with you guys on what makes the most sense for everybody to get that support in.
Absolutely. These are island residents, just like those of us, from the human species. But they are our brothers and sisters as well in nature, and we need to take care of them, just like we're helping your neighbors down the street, just like we're helping businesses get back after this very, very devastating typhoon. So, Julia, what were some of your final impressions of Jimmy and Barb's character, and the way that you heard the community ask if are they all right, and is there anything we can do?
Well, I will just say that my experience in Guam overall was incredible. I look forward to an opportunity to visit at a better time for everybody, but despite the hardship, it was a truly incredible environment. And then specific to Jimmy and Barb, I meet a lot of people in our industry. I'm really lucky to meet a lot of folks who have zoos all around the country. It is very amazing to see folks who have been doing it for the duration they have, to have the experience they have, and to see them get up and they're still doing it every single day. We as ZDR3 always want to help ensure our member facilities, move on in this path to recovery. Doing this work on behalf of Jimmy and Barbara, doing this travel, I can't tell you what we got out of it. It's been really remarkable. And so I encourage folks to help them, because they are one of the most amazing couples I've had the opportunity to meet in a very long time, and supporting them was very, very easy to want to do.
Okay, before I get to the final question, I keep saying final question, but this is just such a fascinating conversation. Julia, is the moray eel exhibit still around? Because moray eels can get very, very old, and I would absolutely love to help get them back on track, even though those things scared the dickens out of me when I was a kid. Moray eels were frightening, but I want to help.
So funny. Moray eels, I also have a fear of. I grew up, big cats are my background, but moray eels for whatever reason. And I did spend some time looking at that eel, who was very well contained, which I really appreciated.
Oh, good.
But that I think would be an excellent direction. It's really amazing that you guys have a facility like theirs that has both terrestrial and aquatic species, that they really have a remarkable collection. And I'm so appreciative that you know it well enough to know where that support can go. So we
Islanders, we love the ocean. So we have a deep connection of anything like under the waves. Okay. And now final question. I know 15 times. Jimmy and Barb would never want to make this about them, and they would always say it's about the animals, it's about this facility, and it's about educating children and bringing positivity. But the storm did have a side story, because the storm actually came on Jimmy and Barb's 49th wedding anniversary.
It did. And I actually asked Jimmy and Barbara about that, which was, that must have been very hard. And where do you want to see yourself on your 50th anniversary, because hopefully it's different. And they kind of thought about it, and their answer was, well, we want to be here. And I was like, okay, well, I'm so glad that your trajectory is exactly, in this line. I was like, I think the goal though is to be here and have things be rebuilt. And they were in agreement. But I think that, they're not planning a big cruise vacation. They're not planning, their focus is they want to be here caring for their animals on their 50th anniversary and beyond. And we want to help them be there as well. And so thank you to you and the community for helping in that process. All
right. I will be the first one in line to go, get that coin operated, like feed thing and feed the billy goats again, because one of them ate my shirt about eight years ago. So, again, wonderful memories of this wonderful facility. It's a part of island life. It is an institution here on the island. And Julia, we thank you for your contributions to help two beloved members of our community, Jimmy and Barbara Cushing, get back up to speed.
Thank you, Jason. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.